Stop dragging my heart around. Stevie Nicks, Tom Petty. I will love that woman till the day I die. Fantastic voice. I am here with Dan Willis and Laura Eisenhower, and we've been pretty much covering the gambit. Now, I had brought up a little while ago the Smith Modernization Act, and I want to read this. This is the wiki on the Smith Modernization Act, and when I got into this, it's kind of why I can't really watch like I used to watch the news still. I'd be able to watch it. Even Tucker, I have a hard time watching Tucker Carlson. I used to be able to do it. But once I've seen this, it's like, man, then what's the point of watching? There's better shows to watch, the way I see it. So here, the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948, popularly called the Smith-Munt Act, that's what you type in if you're looking it up, is the basic legislative authorization for propaganda activities conducted by the U.S. Department of State, sometimes called public diplomacy. I don't know how many times in my life I've heard that quote, those words. The act was first introduced by Congressman Carl E. Munt in January 1945 in the 79th Congress. It was subsequently passed by the 80th Congress and signed into law by President Harry Truman on January 27, 1948. The Smith Modernization Act of 2012, which was contained within the NDAA Act for the fiscal year of 2013, Section 1078A amended the United States Information and Education Exchange Act of 1948 and the Foreign Relations Authorization Act of 1987, allowing for materials produced by the State Department. Who was the head of the State Department back then, guys? Tee-hee-hee. And Broadcasting Board of Governors to be available within the United States. And seeing as us Canadians here, we just share everything that the Americans have going on as well as our own. You guys have an actual act to cover your politicians' butts. I'm wondering if Miss Trudeau has an act covering her butt. Because Justine, I'm going to do what I can to make. I've been trolling, I guess you would call it, a few of his MPs, and there's not one MP left, I think, in my area that I'm not blocked from on. Actually, it could be why I was blocked from on Facebook. What do you guys think about what I just read? I'm sure you have probably touched on it before, or at least heard of it.
Yeah,
Daniel, yes.
I'm familiar with it. The Obama in the 2013 National Defense Authorization Act, even though the FCC regulations state, being a broadcast engineer and ex-ABC newsman, I'm familiarized with some of this stuff. The distortion of the news is against the FCC regulations, and it could violate the station's license. But in the NDAA of 2013, they made it so that it's legal to use disinformation. Obama signed this in against the American public.
Yeah,
and so
for the news to do it as well. Yes.
Yeah, but like I said, the first part of the show, this whole foreign interference, this executive order that was done back in September 2018, it would mean that the assets would be frozen of New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, MSNBC, Google, Facebook, Twitter, everybody who has participated in a coordinated effort to interfere with the election. According to this executive order, the United States government can seize their assets. And so, you're talking about the biggest takedown of media in the history of the world.
That's just, it's amazing to me. And there's so many people, I'll bring it up, and not a lot of people have heard of it, of course, but I'll bring it up to them, then I'll tell them what it is. I'll even show them the wiki explanation of what it is, and they can check it out for themselves. but they still just, it's kind of like me, how I'm still wondering if the ghosts I've been seeing were just a dream, because especially the further you get away from it. But, it's really hard. They've got it so thoroughly wrapped. A large part of it is through the educational system, like you've said before. Once they hijacked that, all bets were off, because they fill it up with the people they want. Like, think about your favorite teacher. What were their politics, right? You love your teacher, and he's kind of like your hero, or she's kind of like your hero. So you back then anyway, we tended to want to emulate these people. And if their politics were what they were talking about, that's what we got into. And you know what? I'm absolutely unsure where I was going with that. But Laurel, I also wanted to bring up the Akashic Records, because I've heard you bring it up a lot. It was something until recently I didn't really understand what it was. For those listening and for those who may not know, what are the Akashic Records and how do they affect us, do you think?
How do the Akashic Records affect us, you're asking?
Yeah, like what are they for people who don't know? They've just heard Akashic Records and they're like, well, what is the Akashic Records?
Well, it's like the greater living library that reveals people's past lives and their soul history. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of that has been manipulated. Most ancient texts also have been, even the Nag Hammadi. The freedom teachings were wiped out, and it changed the way that ancient texts were presented to people. Very much the Anunnaki kind of infiltration. Not saying all Anunnaki are negative. It was meant to be another seeding of the human race after things like the electrical wars and other things went down. It was like, oh, it was appropriate to have a second seeding, but that second seeding got infiltrated, just like everything. That isn't in balance or isn't in total awareness, and it kind of split off into two camps. And the negative faction of the Anunnaki ended up aligning with the Draco Reptilians, and the more positive aspects of the Anunnaki, moved into Ireland, the tribes of
right,
Danu and a lot of these other archetypes. And William Henry talks about it a lot. And like Avalon, it's sort of like the next level of Atlantis, Lemuria, but it's still a very targeted civilization that was much higher, that still honored, these creative energies and forces that the societies were built around, things like hierogamic union and going through the initiations and going through, the whole death journey. That was the structure of the society, not movies and pop culture and celebrities and hair extensions and eyelashes and fucking Botox. It's this is really, sorry, I'm going to go off and I don't want to be disturbing, but anyway, oh my God, please remind me of the question.
It was just about what the Akashic Records were and how you think they affect us.
So, well, the way they affect us is when a person is able to start to tap into that living library, they're really going into a person's sacred journey. And if there's any distortion, it can have very detrimental effects. Right. Anybody who's claiming to be psychic, clairvoyant, even an astrologer, anything. And that's why when I entered this field, I was like, I say every day, if this isn't in the highest integrity and service to the greater good of the person that I'm working with and the greater good of humanity, I'm not going to do it. So right. There are times that I just cancel appointments. I'm like, the energy's just not right. I will only do it under this intention or else I'm not going to do it. And so, because I know, I've seen it, and it gets so dark. There are certain Akashic record keepers. I don't seek these things out, but some people have wanted to do a trade with me. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a Akashic record keeper reader.
Oh, right.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. And they'll share one thing. And then somebody else, and this is over the course of at least, 10, 15 years. This isn't like, oh, it all happened this last week.
Right.
But you get different versions, you get different things. And then you can tell the person that's doing the reading isn't very clear with themselves. And there's a lot of very almost ego-based psychic people that anything that comes into them, they'll be like, oh, that must be the truth. It's like, well, the reason I delved into astrology and these other, tools is because I want grounded data. I'm not going to assume that everything's coming into me is the ultimate truth. I'm in a human body. I got my filters. I got my wounds. I like data. So I don't even want to really do that many astrology readings anymore. But, it just seems to find me. So I'm like, okay, well, it's sacred and I'll do my best. And, people have walked away being like, okay, because I'm very, very careful. And so there's some Akashic record readers that are not careful, and I've seen them do more damage than good. And that a lot of this information is not coming in as clearly as people might present themselves as being able to bring through. But the impact it has on us is that maybe we need to learn how to access our own Akashic records, or be very, very careful and take it with a grain of salt when we work with somebody who claims that they can read your Akashic records. So
exactly, yeah. Dan, what do you know of this?
Well, I don't know. It's like we're the spinning planet going across the galaxy here. Is almost like a magnetic tape head, writing everything. Everything records, everything writes. As the scientist I work with, Dr. Marcel Vogel, he was the one who invented the coding for hard drives that everybody used in the computers afterward, and that was his specialty, was how to record into matter, and that's what got him into researching crystals and water, and how everything is recording. Everything in your house, your energy, where you sleep, where you hang out, the walls, the microphone that's in front of you, is recording your energy. That's how people can psychometrize and pick up things.
Yeah.
So you can go,
Well, that's what I hear about.
I agree with Laura.
Wolf,
everybody needs to learn how to, tap into this. It seems like we all get born into with a veil that hides a lot of our ancient past.
Mm-hmm. And I believe we all do tap into it, actually. People call it intuition, right? Or gut feeling, or mother's intuition.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be times, just like for me as a singer, I would sit down to write a song, and I could see every bit of it as the words are writing. I'm seeing the video of it's like you tapped into something and you can't stop writing until it's done. Those are the things that really seem to be like you tapped into something. So I believe and most musicians know about that. Artists, everybody taps into something at some point, and that usually tends to be their best work, I find. So what time do we got here? We got 11:14 now. Where did I want to go next? I can't even remember. So actually, yeah. Here's a little clip that I'd found that it's from that TV show, The Newsroom, I believe it's called, and it's Jeff Daniels, and I can't remember the other actor's name, but it's flippin' brilliant. I'm going to quickly stop sharing and reshare. And this was something that it got me thinking about when the pandemic had happened and all the air got clean and everything. I started thinking, man, did they have to shut us down so they could clean the air and stuff? So here's this in a couple seconds. Welcome to Factor Theory Live. I'm Steve Crawford. I don't have the facts on this next clip, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it's not very far from the truth, or at least not even bang on.
And joining us now in studio is Richard Westbrook, Deputy Assistant Administrator of the EPA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Westbrook, you've spent most of your professional career as a climate scientist in the public sector.
Yes, 10 years as a supervisory management analyst in the Office of Environmental Information. And before that, I was a program specialist in the EPA's Resource Management Division.
And you have a PhD in climate science from Stanford.
Yes, and another in chemistry with a master's in biology.
Okay. Tell us about the findings in the report that was just released.
The latest measurements taken at Mauna Loa in Hawaii indicate a CO2 level of 400 parts per million.
Just so we know what we're talking about, if you were a doctor and we were the patient, what's your prognosis? 1,000 years? 2,000 years?
A person has already been born who will die due to catastrophic failure of the planet.
What did he just say?
Okay, can you expand on that?
Sure. The last time there was this much CO2 in the air, the oceans were 80 feet higher than they are now. Two things you should know. Half the world's population lives within 120 miles of an ocean.
And the other?
Humans can't breathe underwater.
You're saying the situation's dire.
Not exactly. Your house is burning to the ground. The situation's dire. Your house has already burned to the ground. The situation's over.
So what can we do to reverse this?
Well, there's a lot we could do.
Good.
If it were 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, but now, no.
Can you make an analogy that might help us understand?
Sure. It's as if you're sitting in your car, in your garage, with the engine running and the door closed, and you've slipped into unconsciousness, and that's it.
What if someone comes and opens the door?
You're already dead.
What if the person got there in time?
You'd be saved.
Okay. So now what's the CO2 equivalent of the getting there on time?
Shutting off the car 20 years ago.
You sound like you're saying it's hopeless.
Yeah.
Is that the administration's position or yours?
There isn't a position on this any more than there's a position on the temperature at which water boils.
The administration, your administration.
And don't forget, I need you to stretch
wind and solar,
40.
clean coal, nuclear power, raising fuel economy standards, and building a more efficient electrical grid.
Yes.
And?
That would have been great.
Let's see if we can't find a better spin. People are starting their weekends. The report says we can release 565 more gigatons of CO2 without the effects being calamitous.
It says we can only release 565 gigatons.
So what if we only release 564?
Well, then we would have a reasonable shot at some form of dystopian post-apocalyptic life. But the carbon dioxide in the oil that we've already leased is 2,795 gigatons. So
what would all this look like?
well, mass migrations, food and water shortages, spread of deadly disease, endless wildfires, way too many to keep under control. Storms that have the power to level cities, blacken out the sky, and create permanent darkness.
Are you going to get in trouble for saying this publicly?
Who cares?
Mr. Westbrook, we want to inform people, but we don't want to alarm them. Can you give us a reason to be optimistic?
Well, that's the thing. Well, Americans are optimistic by nature. And if we face this problem head on, if we listen to our best scientists and act decisively and passionately, I still don't see any way we can survive.
Okay. Richard Westbrook, Deputy Assistant Administrator of the EPA. Thank you for joining us.
We want to inform, but we don't want to alarm. You know, funny to me how close that clip is to the way the press is. That's how they try to spin everything. They've got to find that angle that they can find where they go, okay, now I feel better about this story. Let's run with it. Fantastic. Have you guys ever seen that show? Dan?
No.
No. Jeff Daniels is fantastic on that. Okay. Not that I want to get into, well, unless you guys want to talk climate change. It wasn't really an introduction, because I honestly don't know much about it. I believe that everything that is going on with that, it's real. It's happening. It's man-made. And it has a lot to do with the weather control that was Laura even had mentioned. And Michio Kaku had actually brought up, he brings up the civilization types. He likes to say there's a type 1, a type 2, and a type 3, and we're a type 0. He says a type 1 can manipulate the weather and things like that. Well, you know, what's Michio? He knows he's got to know. I mean, if he's got to have at least see, now I'm going to rant. What do you guys think about that? What's that?
Well, Stephen, you know, all these three-letter agencies, you know, the EPA, the CDC, the FDA, all of them.
The alphabet agencies, yeah.
A lot of them are, you know, people have been noticing, been a bit compromised.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so a lot of it sometimes put out information to support a particular agenda, too. So, you know, I mean, not to say I know any better than the man with multiple PhDs, but I've been observing a lot of people that are with these agencies, like take the WHO, for example.
Right.
And the CDC and the different agencies that have
Does it
not
make you wonder
always.
about the band The Who? It's like, were they hinting?
Yeah, haven't they been sued yet? If it was Kiss, they would have sued.
All right. Anyway, wait, I didn't mean to jump in like that. Keep going, Dan.
Yeah, sorry. You were talking about
no,
corrupt agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's yeah, you got to laugh at some of this stuff.
To keep from crying. More good news. It looks like we're at least tied with Rush Limbaugh on TalkStream Live right now. Shout out to everyone on TalkStream Live. Want to remind the listeners we're 100% listener funded, and it would be fantastic if you guys could come to freedomslips.com or revolution.radio and join the fun in the chat room. Great information, great people. You can go up, hit the donate button. You could scroll down and become a patron. That would be fantastic. I did that myself. I think it's like $6 a month altogether with all the fees and that. So that would be cool. You can also buy some stuff, some swag from Chatsy. They make more of the money than we do, but what the hell? It's swag and it says Revolution Radio and great artwork from a mad painter. Hollywood Insight. Okay, actually, you know what? There is something I want to cover, and I'm not going to play all of this because it's a long clip. I'm going to unshare and reshare because this is something Laura gets into a lot with the people she interviews as well. This was a gentleman who was a semi-famous actor who shortly after doing this, I think within a few months, he was dead. And it shows his name on here. I'll see.
Welcome to Conspiracy Factor Theory. I'm Steve Crawford. The following is a clip of Hollywood actor Isaac Cappy coming out and exposing Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks, and a few others. This isn't the full interview. I think he was doing a Facebook Live, some kind of live chat, and he was taking questions and giving some pretty freaky answers. So here it is, Isaac Cappy.
I was going to be talking a lot about Seth and Claire and Yarvo and Matt Cohen and Dan Ferguson. Ooh. Where does Dan Ferguson work? No, I'm not even going to talk about Spielberg, who, by the way, Steven Spielberg is a pedophile. Yep. See how easy that was, Corey? I didn't need $10 million. I just said it. But what I want to get into is, I want to get into like the bigger picture of how this stuff is all connected. Because when you're talking about like really elite levels, the name of the game is blackmail. So they want something on you that they can hold over your head so they can basically own you and tell you what to do. And they film it. And then they own you. So that's what runs the whole system, basically. They want compromised people because they're easy to control. And a lot of people, they'll just go along with it and do whatever just for fame or money or accolades or any of that stuff. I don't understand it. Some people are just like really into the evil shit. Yarvo. I'm not going to talk about Tom Hanks either, who is also a pedophile. Tom Hanks, folks, is a pedophile. I'm sorry if this is the kind of bursting your bubble. All this information is new, but it's time that this comes out into the open because we are going to change the way everything works. Because at the top levels of wealth, of power, the very top levels, these people are just sick and psycho.
So like I said, that guy, obviously, after outing those people, was killed shortly later. And then I had seen a picture that had come out, I think it was around the beginning of the lockdown. Excuse me, that a picture came out of Tom Hanks with a black eye, and he had Oprah and Gail standing behind him. And there was pictures of him at the airport with what looked, some people said, was security guards or bodyguards even, which could be, obviously, but one of them looked pretty old. It looked a lot more like something federal going on. What do you guys think about what that guy was just saying? And I know, Laura, we'll start with you, Laura. I know that you've talked to people who've been victims of the sex trafficking trade.
Right, and that's kind of what I think of when I hear him. And he's one of many voices, and some have been on the side of what he's talking about that have been horribly abused. And there's so many different levels of it. You got child trafficking, human trafficking, but it also goes off planet, and there's no way to measure how much any particular person that's coming forward has experienced the fullness of what the 13 families in the Illuminati puts their children through. And then there's civilians that they target, which might be less, it might be worse. It's like there's no way to really measure it. It's like, and it's crazy. So I've worked with so many clients for a really long time, and that's more devastating than anything I could possibly read in the news. It's like false flags, psychological operations, These are all the alters of the people I'm giving readings to that want to heal, that are like, oh, we were programmed to be that person, to create that false flag, to be that representative, similar to what we see with like the governors and, other people in these prominent positions and certain celebrities. And there's a few that have been like, okay, well, you'll take us seriously and you'll listen. And they're saying, some of their alters are like this, and they were trafficked to like the royals and the Trudeaus, and like, and they're not seeking me out. It was like I either gave like a family member a reading, and they said, oh, well, this especially with the case with Ellen and Derek. Ellen was my client, and she's like talking about her husband. She's like, oh, well, I know you talk about this stuff. He's got like 200 alters, and she's like, you're the only person that's listening and taking me seriously. And I was listening. I was like, oh, and it relates to a lot of the other, things, and especially, Kathy O'Brien. And I mean, that was the one that, got real public. But, I've been definitely connected to that. And I remember, and I have to say real quick, I did a conference with Kathy O'Brien back in, I think it was like 2013. And we gave each other a hug. We had a table next to each other. My necklace caught on her sweater, and we were like stuck together for a while. And it was just, oh my God. It was like, seriously, it's like, who I feel are the greatest heroes, of course. But it's not like everybody, when we play our role, when we overcome the worst of adversity, it's like, that is the ultimate gift. So there's enough of this. But I guess, at the end of the day, just to make a long story that I can shorten as a story, and a shorter story, not so long. It's been proven to me. It's not like an internet search. It's like, no, I know this stuff exists. And there's most of the stuff that we all know about and talk about is absolutely spot on. As far as what I've learned from, people that have wanted sessions that aren't looking to be, out there, that might take advantage of these kind of stories, make a lot of money off of it, and exploit the whole disclosure movement, and victims that are really trying to come forward, which really irks me. Of course, I know it irks you guys. There's been a lot of that's helped me to, connect dots. And there's been, certain individuals that have such a strong consciousness that they can literally really consolidate all these different alters and not have any one of them cause them to, go out of control, except for some people, and they can admit it. They say, even like Stuart Swerdler, and I'll talk all the time. And I'm not like, I have not been in the kind of projects they have been in, but I understand, like, if they have all these alters, it's like, how can, because my goal is to help, heal this whole thing. It's like, okay, holding the most dominant, spiritually grounded and aware altar, so all the rest can come home and feel like, oh, I can return to source. I can reconnect. It's like, because we're dealing with that on a macro level, and some really brave souls are like, okay, they're going to incarnate into that craziness. So I know I got to wrap it up, but there are some very conscious souls that you can tell that their dominant altar is a higher spiritual awareness that makes them safe. And there are others that literally, like I've noticed, and I've seen them also, at events, and, we see it, they're everywhere, where their dominant expression is, oh, no, I'm going to continue to fool people. I'm going to continue to exploit people and make money and be that negative alter that they prepped you to be in these kind of end times. And there's a lot of people that broke those, programs where their dominant self is, I'm going to call this out. And so that, I guess, to answer all that, I've noticed a distinct difference. Some don't feel safe. I have to block them. I'm like, man, they got too many alters, and then they flip out at me and they're messaging me. It's like, I don't feel qualified. Like, what the fuck have I taken on here? Like,
gotta watch the F-bombs.
Right. So I've had to, oh gosh, the targeting has been nuts, but the amount of breakthroughs and the goodness, it's like, that needs an avenue of redemption, just like all of us. And all our little errors or mistakes, even if they're tiny, they feel huge. Like a splinter is nothing compared to a broken leg, but why does it hurt so much? But I'm not a victim. We're not victims. But I mean, there's commonality and there's a rebuilding process that's happening. And doing readings and astrology readings for the last decade, especially when people that normally wouldn't know where to go, they come to me, even though I'm not super qualified. They're like, you will listen. You will take us seriously. You actually care, and you're not, it's like, and so it's been an honor, but it's thrown me down so many rabbit holes, and sometimes it's just like, it's very hard to maintain.
It's emotionally draining, I would imagine.
Myself, actually, because it's too much. I'm an empath, and it takes so much to just be able to move some of that out of my space just to do simple things like, I don't know, find matching slippers. It's like, I can't even do that. So
I hear you. I become quite the cluster myself. I've got to get some sage and burn some sage too, because I'm an empath myself, and I pick up everything that is going on around me. And I really should look into because these people say there are ways to control it. I really got to look into it because, like you say, you can get caught up listening because you got a big heart. You want to listen and help these people, but when you hear some of the evil these people have gone through, it's just really hard not to have that hang on you for a little while.
It's totally wrecked me, and the thing is, when people are like, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory," it's like, don't even start with me. It's like my everyday. Literally every day of the week for a huge portion of the day, I'm processing this kind of stuff with people. And it's just like, so to have that angle is really helpful, because if a person doesn't have that angle, it's understandable that it would seem impossible or, and that's where we have to start to take each other more seriously. And unfortunately, the disinfo plants with their altars can literally really hook into people and create those sort of cultish attachments. And then boom, they just like fuck you over at the last minute. But
F-bombs.
Oh, shoot.
That's okay. I just have to address them when they slip out so that management doesn't get mad at me.
Oh, man. Well,
it's all good. It's all good.
I got to edit so much stuff. That's why.
Well, you're used to talking to me where I can edit that stuff out.
Yeah. I wish I was an editor because, I figured out all this tech stuff, and it's like, I cannot wait till I figure out how to edit certain things. But I dropped an F-bomb. Dan, do you please take over? Because clearly I'm in the corner, and
no, you're fired up, and rightly so. We're angry, and we're not going to take it anymore. How long are we supposed to allow this to continue when we know what we have to do to make it stop? We just have to make that happen. We got to stop talking about it and take the steps necessary, whatever they may be.
A lot of people in Hollywood,
even so well. You just nailed it. Yep.
Thank
you. Totally agree.
Go ahead, Dan. What do you think about that?
Oh, I was just saying, a lot of people in Hollywood, Nicole Kidman, before Stanley Kubrick, after he did Eyes Wide Shut, was, died.
Died.
She was saying that, it's this club that's all men bonded by this pedophilia, that and when she and she said, well, your newspapers, you won't allow you to print that. But somebody printed that, and when, she lost a couple of contracts from doing that. And that's the way Hollywood works. If you go along with the agenda, your career gets boosted up. And, all these, satanic ritual abuse is a real thing. Pedophilia is a real thing. The adrenochrome is a real thing. What you have to wonder about is where all these operations are taking place, on the Epstein Island, or all the massive amounts of deep underground military bases and off-planet, like Laura was mentioning. You have this entire network. It's just kind of interesting that, before the end of World War II, the Nazis were using slave labor in deep underground, doing their facilities, and then under paperclip, they brought over Hitler's mastermind, Xavier Dorsch, and they started tunneling out in New Mexico and expanding out huge all over the place, these massive facilities. And nobody has any idea what is going on under there or where all the missing people end up. And
just the rumors
probably some of it is off planet.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people don't like to think about that stuff. The things that go on at those bases. There was a guy, I wish I could remember his name. He had come out. He allegedly worked there. He had leaked it to somebody else. There were alleged pictures. I say that all the time, alleged. And the things that are supposed to be happening there are just, nobody wants to think about that. That's a big problem, is that everybody wants to live in Never Never Land in Disney World, and everywhere you're a Disney princess or you're Prince Charming or you're a hockey jock or something, anything other than dealing with the dark stuff that's out there.
Oh my God.
And
the mother always dies, like Bambi's mother. It's like there's always like a really gnarly relationship with the mother.
There's always something to get you sad and crying in there. They've got to make you feel bad. They got to draw that energy. How many psychic vampires are at each screening? Wow.
Well, even just the children, like poetry, like when the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and when the
How morbid is that?
Like, baby just dropped to the ground and the crib broke. Okay, I'm singing this to my child? What the heck?
Throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Even just the stupid sayings and stuff, too. It's, man, we are a domestic race.
On a positive note, look at all the executive orders about, child sex trafficking and all this stuff going out. And, Dr. Michael Sal recently about this Artemis Accord, which is all these different nations, except for China, of course, gathering together that would set precedents in space operations so that, there's a lot of human rights abuse going on with off-planet mining deep under Antarctica and on the deep underground military bases, no doubt. This whole mindset, it's interesting that Obama in 2015 did the Space Act, which basically got the corporations off the hook for human rights abuse. And then the thing that caught my attention was that the British Interplanetary Society all got together these top minds. You probably remember this, Laura, where they got all these minds on how to overthrow a hypothetical situation that we have this Nazi dictator on Mars that's running the slave colony. How can we possibly overthrow this? They put all these minds together, and this was, I think it was 2015 or something like that. But and then we find out this Israeli space scientist is saying that we already have bases on the Mars with extraterrestrials and everything, and so it appears that there's, because it's out of sight, out of people can't see what's going on underground, can't see what's going on the other planets, Mars and on the moon, that these criminal, and the Nazis were doing this, they just carried it over when they moved all their operations to their Antarctic base and doing all this human experimentation. You think about the Nuremberg trials, which is kind of interesting that, we're bringing up about the informed consent that was established in 1946 at the Nuremberg trials against the Nazi doctors that were forcing, these things on people. And when you have these vaccinations that are, if they're ever brought out in a way that's a forced vaccination, that goes against the Nuremberg trial law that was established back in 1946. So, as long as people can't see these things that are going on around them, then, it's like
it has no effect on
the Disneyland Prince Charming and Princess world of reality, while you have some pretty dark, evil things going on being done to other people. And I think if the benevolent forces that use the rule of law, like the executive orders that are being put out, these executive orders have bite to them. They have teeth. That we have a very powerful military and intelligence operations that know where all these things are going on. On certain levels, they know about all this, and I think there is, it's maybe call me naive, but I think there's a certain goodness of humanity that doesn't want to see this type of things done to fellow human beings or other extraterrestrials, right. And we'll step up to the plate and do something about it.
Right, and Dan and I did a few shows about the origins of the plan, or how the building blocks of this greater plan began to formulate itself. Even though it requires our participation, I don't believe there are saviors. I mean, there are aspects of ourselves we need to locate in order to be a part of that greater team that is to transform the world and, show this greater side. But, I mean, it's just like the Earth as an organism has experienced what we've experienced in our own personal worlds as an organism. But that is a much vaster and greater story that we've been not told enough about. Right. But we've been a part of it from the beginning. And even those layers of unconsciousness or amnesia and those places that just literally like they just aren't there anymore. And instead it's the propaganda and the social engineering and all the different energies connected to also witnessing the elementals around us being geoengineered and steered in this way or that way. I mean, everything that is literally creating the artificial mimicked version of a timeline that is actually unbelievably incredible. And it just mimics it, and it seeks that lowest common denominator within humanity that has been traumatized. Their self-esteem has been targeted since childhood. Like, oh, you won't amount to anything unless you take this route, unless you get A's, unless you join this team and you get a scholarship. It's like, and all the starseeds and all the shamans, all the reincarnations or the embodiments of those coming through that are like presenting a whole other reality. Is like, they're they got ADD. They're dyslexic. It's like, and the greater mind knows better, but we're sort of needing to break away from an agreement, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Every single person needs to say, I'm done with allowing that to create my reality.
Right.
It tends to create a fool out of the things that go beyond that particular narrative. It's like there's no other existence beyond that. And that's why they're like, oh, people aren't ready for disclosure. But it's like, I don't think people are ready for New World Order and Satanists enslaving us any further than they already have.
Right.
No one's prepared for that. So that excuse, they laid it on Eisenhower, oh, yeah, people aren't ready for disclosure. Well, as we know, Dan and I have talked about, the plan that was put in place was based in his continued connection with the more benevolent races that goes way before him. That's a part of a greater lineage of the Paladorian covenant, which overrides the Luciferian ones.
Right.
And I need to shut up, but it's like, so the artificial version is sort of the nightmare perspective that we can hold every waking moment, where we'll look at something and we'll see an attack instead of seeing the medicine.
Right.
Nature, the poison is always next to the plant that can heal the very thing that, and it's like there's this greater order and system based in universal laws and cosmic and natural law that constantly create an alchemical response to the things that will try to destroy you, to the point where you recognize, oh, there is no such thing as true death. Like we are immortal, but there's so many layers and storylines, and when it's in the heaviest of density, that storyline could be, oh yeah, I'm going to take that shot, or I'm going to wear that mask. Then all of a sudden become that EBE that, joins a coalition or an alliance in order to gain that genetic material back through breeding programs. It's like, can't we just figure it out now?
Absolutely. Like, because I'm getting tired of waiting myself. Change the flipping channel. Oh. Okay, we've got about 12 minutes before the top of the hour. I'm good. It's getting like you guys got to be. Well, no, you're a couple hours behind me, so you guys are probably more awake than I am right now. I feel like I
late end of
it. Yeah,
Peter says it's 8:48 p.m. The house clock says it's 9:45. You're East Coast, right? So you're like what? Almost midnight.
Yeah, we're 12 minutes to midnight here. Yeah. Jeez. But I want to thank you guys for. I don't want to hold you up too much longer, and I've got one clip I want to play out the show on, and I want to thank everybody who's been listening on all the formats and everybody in the chat room. You guys rock. This was Dan, Willis, and Laura Eisenhower, and make sure you check out both of their YouTube pages and everything they're up to. I really want to thank you guys for being here. Have a kick-ass holiday and kick-ass night, guys.
You as well. Thank you so much for having us. It's always great to be with you, Dan.
Always great to join you, Laura. And by the way, check out the webmatrix.net. Go to Eisenhower and the plan. And interesting about Laura's great-grandfather, about a plan that was put in place. And you can read more about it and based on witness testimonies.
Absolutely. It's in chronological order. There's some great info on Dan's page, so make sure you guys check that out as well. It'll be listed on the video that's going to be popped up on YouTube the next day or two, as well as Laura's website information. So everybody out there, have a great night. I am going to play a clip about religious freedom that gets into, I believe this one gets into the... No, it doesn't, so I'm going to stop saying that it does. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to do the AI one. This one's a great clip. Everybody have a great night, and this is Revolution.radio. Make sure you donate.
Some conspiracy theorists even suggest that AI may be some strange attempt by elitists to channel malevolent interdimensional entities to help them rule over the earth. The Hollywood concept of sorcery and the modern applications of software have a lot in common. But is it possible that these machines could ever be conscious and function like sentient life forms? Perhaps the scariest cautionary tale so far comes from tech giant Facebook. Facebook has been on a never-ending quest to perfect their user experience and maximize their profitability. Part of this endeavor involved experimentation within the AI field. 2 automated chatbots were set up to talk to each other so the results of their human-like qualities could be observed for research. What happened next scared researchers so much that they decided to shut the experiment down immediately. The machines not only talked to each other efficiently, they began to develop their own language in the midst of the conversation to encrypt the nature of their conversation, to hide what they were discussing from observers. Perhaps the biggest threat is not things we see going wrong every day, but things that we have never imagined could happen under our influence as a species. Are these early warning signs an omen that we should pull the plug? Or is it too late to turn back now? Perhaps the biggest and most controversial implementation of AI software in recent years came with Google's acquisition of British artificial intelligence company DeepMind in 2014. The original application of the technology was to train computers to play video games like humans. What is more interesting is the project's development of a neural Turing machine, based on the original machine that was developed by Alan Turing himself. This neural network upgrade gives the machine the ability to access external data memory that is stored across a large network of computers and lets the machine closely mimic the short-term memory that humans have. This milestone in cybernetics brings machines one step closer to replicating human consciousness, for better or worse. Several influential figures were involved in funding the AI startup, including Scott Bannister and Elon Musk. Musk, who is outspoken about the regulation of AI, may have made the recommendation for what would become the Artificial Intelligence Ethics Board at Google in 2014. Not much is known about how the board operates or even who the sitting members are. Should a company with so much data about the average person be allowed to possess such a powerful and dangerous technology? Though the concept of machine learning has been around for a while, it reached new heights when DeepMind beat the reigning Go world champion. Go is a game like chess, with more complex combinational logic. A machine with this capacity could outthink any human at the very highest level of pure intellect, and now it is in the hands of a company people use every day. But it's just a computer system running a game-winning program, right? Unlike other popular AI systems we have seen in the recent Renaissance, experts at Google claim DeepMind isn't pre-programmed with parameters, which contradicts everything we know about conventional computer science. This advancement has allowed the technology to play many games better than humanly possible. But what else is it really capable of? Could this be the missing link to perfecting self-driving cars? Or would the technology be able to develop its own sinister agenda? Does the world's most powerful company hold the key to an AI-based world? Or are there dangerous repercussions to projects being launched on this scale? Surely, with private companies adopting this level of technology, the militaries of the world must outpace them to protect their country's interests, right? Well, in 2015, a major operation was launched that may give the general public a clue as to how they might be utilizing it, and conspiracy theorists everywhere were terrified. The Jade Helm operation was a set of domestic urban warfare exercises that took place in suburban neighborhoods around the United States of America. The official story was that these exercises were designed to train soldiers for asymmetrical warfare objectives in highly populated areas to be utilized in the Middle East. Asymmetrical warfare generally refers to established state governments fighting armies of rebels with a lower magnitude of force. The question is, are they really preparing for freedom fighters in the Middle East? And how does AI come into the picture? The lesser publicized portion of these exercises' objectives involved the utilization of geospatial data mapping technology. Not only were soldiers being trained, but computers were too. By mapping these environments and scenarios, the technology would give military forces an insurmountable strategic advantage and help commanding officers make real-time decisions with a much higher degree of accuracy and success, or even allow advanced weapons to make these decisions.